It is the spooky season still, and I don't know if this movie's spooky, but it's a horror movie. So let's talk about Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I watched this on AMC Plus, which is probably also Shudder. You know how AMC Plus works. It kind of, you know, generates stuff also from like Shudder, IFC Films, and sometimes it comes from one of those other ones. They're all together sort of on the stream. It's like a streaming service with like multiple streaming services on it. Like you could subscribe to just Shudder and you would probably still get Killer Clowns from Outer Space is what I'm saying. However, sadly, this film does not have audio description. But it's 30, we got 31 days of Halloween here. And Shudder is a streaming service literally dedicated to horror movies and really can't justify ignoring them entirely, or at least talking about why they really should think about expanding and allowing blind and visually impaired people to enjoy content on the film. So I chose Killer Clowns from Outer Space to drive home that message. This is a really interesting movie because I've seen stills of this film, but I've never actually seen the film. It's a very fun midnight campy movie. Even if you're just listening to it, even if you're blind like me and you just listen to it, it is so goofy and silly, just in the lines and in the plot. And when like people are running around, there's a cop character that's like really over the top, just like doesn't believe in anything, and he's like really hilarious just because of how he thinks everything's just like a joke or a prank. He's like, damn kids, you know. Wow, never better take this seriously. Nobody's gonna get me out of my job, you know. And it works. Like, he just refuses to acknowledge that there might actually be this. He's like, clowns, and of course, yeah. Clowns from Outer Space sounds like a real thing. You know, stuff like that works. To have a character like that in one of these midnight movies who's sort of like the stuck in their ways type person who doesn't understand whatever the crazy thing that's happening is. You know, whether it's killer clowns or killer tomatoes or whatever silly thing is that's running around. It always helps to have one of those characters that's like, that's impossible, until they die. Inevitably. Yeah, so this film, I don't know, do I need to tell you the plot? So there are clowns from outer space, and they kill people, and they land in a small town, and they do that. And like several things sort of happen because they have all of these different sort of like alien technology abilities. However, I would say that the only reason I know about that is because I've read about the movie. While actually watching the movie, I couldn't experience any of it. For example, I did not experience the shadow puppet sequence. That is not something that I was able to experience without audio description. So that effect was totally lost on me. I did not expect. I did not experience the human puppet sequence. Did not get that without audio description. They shoot people with cotton candy, which is something that's mentioned in the context of the dialogue. They do talk about that. They say, there are these clowns and they're shooting people with cotton candy. That is covered in the dialogue. However, what they look like and how gory they are not covered in the dialogue. Audio description would have covered that, though. Um, especially like when a man's hand, like arm falls off or whatever, which is supposedly one of the things that happens in this film. It's definitely a film that earns its R rating, but it also is a film that is silly while doing it. So this I was inspired to watch this after watching Shark Side of the Moon, because I was thinking this is what we do with camp, right? Now this is what we're trying to do. This is what happens when we try to do camp. And Shark Side of the Moon doesn't have the same flavor as this. You know, Killer Klowns from Outer Space actually was an enjoyable watch, even though I couldn't understand it, like because of the way that everybody is speaking, because of the choice of music, and because the plot is ridiculous. I mean, I will admit, putting sharks on the moon is a ridiculous plot. That should work, but if you don't, if you don't pick the right people to make that film, it doesn't work. Instead, it just comes across as just bad, you know? Killer Clowns from Outer Space ends up becoming a midnight classic because it's so over the top and bizarre and campy and funny and ridiculous and nonsensical and just everything. It's this amalgamation of everything that just kind of blends together and works. I don't know if Shudder were to start embracing audio description fully, how long it would take for them to get to a movie like Killer Clowns from Outer Space from 1998, because as a genre, horror is one of the things that needs audio description the most. I continuously, pretty much always, give these films unwatchable because they're based highly around either jump scares. They're based around scary creatures that are not described, and I have no idea what they look like, so I can't possibly be scared of them. They're based around gore. They're based around, having some terrifying moments where maybe you see something moving around in the background silently, but I don't, because I can't see. So, I mean, this is a genre that is waiting for audio description, and there's a huge community out there that of blind people that love horror films. I talk to them all the time, and I see their posts, and they're trying to like pass along information. I hate to use the term green book, but it's almost like we have green books online, like where we're like, do you know where this is available? Can we I want to try to get this, and it's like trying to make a list of where you can see something and it be accessible to you. Like, we shouldn't have to do that, and it's really depressing to see all of these lists and to see the choices that are being made for us by companies that don't understand the accessibility that they're making, and they don't understand why they need to make it, and they don't understand why it's beneficial. Like, there are some film franchises where maybe like a couple of the sequels are described but not the originals. So I guess I always start franchises like in the middle randomly on a sequel. That's how and then I jump like 2 films to like the next sequel. That feels like, if I watched the Friday the 13th movies only with the ones that had audio description, my life would be absolutely bizarre. There are like 3 of them, but they're not even like next to each other in terms of, I think it's like 2, 5, and 7 or something like that are the ones that have audio description. It's just like, why? Like, why are these the films? Who chose these as being the ones? Anyway, it's a ridiculous nonsense that we have to put up with, and just to try to figure out where things are, because companies like AMC Plus are so hesitant to use audio description. They have the ability to put audio description on it, and they've used very sparingly, teensy weensy, itsy bitsy amounts of audio description over the years. almost non-existent, to where you wouldn't know unless you knew what show it was to look for. So, to say, would Killer Clowns from Outer Space be the first thing on their list? I don't know. But is it a classic? It's a film that I've heard about my entire life. People have told me. This film came out in 1988, so this film is within my lifetime. Although, I don't think my parents would have allowed me to watch it when I was 5. So, it was something I needed to catch up on, and just, I thought I had more time, and then I went blind, and, just didn't get around to it before that. So, I guess shame on me, right? That's the message that I get from people who decide which films do and do not get audio description. So, it's not something I have any control over, and it's not something anybody has any control over. So the films we want to see, or the TV shows we want to see, that are, hard to follow or largely unintelligible, are not going to get audio description. And during this time of the year, when those films we want to see are horror films and scary films, we end up kind of rewatching the same handful of films that have audio description, because nobody really cares about expanding accessibility for us. And that's the truth. So this review of Killer Clowns from Outer Space is saying there's a movie here that I'd love to see. I think a lot of people would. I think a lot of people in the blind community would appreciate this. This is one of the films that I think is oddly standing the test of time in terms of camp, in terms of being a midnight movie, in terms of the word of mouth continuously passing around, so that people are still like, there's a movie called what? Oh, I have to see that. It just bears, like, when you hear about it, you're like, that's got to be a terrible movie. And people are like, actually, no, it's kind of fun. Is it? Oh, no, I have to see it. It's one of those things. So, yeah, I'm glad I finally at least sat through it. It was like under an hour and a half. It was a nice, quick watch. And, yeah, didn't waste my time. And even though I didn't have audio description, there are films that I've watched without audio description where it's just been like a nightmarish hellscape of a viewing experience to try to follow along. Skinamarink would be one of those. The fact that I sat through Skinamarink, I still say somebody owes me money. I don't know who, but nobody should be forced to watch that ever. That movie should have audio description attached to it permanently, legally binding audio description for the rest of its life, because that movie makes no sense at all if you're blind. And guess what? That's a Shudder movie. So, yeah. Shudder, this is mainly for you. What are you doing? Huh? What are you doing? It's Halloween season, scary movie season. I got a movie about killer clowns. They're turning people into cotton candy and popcorn. And they put up carnival rides to try to attract people and kill them. And there's a lot of silly, random violence that I hear happens in this film, but I didn't get any of that while I was experiencing the film. I just kind of got some silly, goofy dialogue and some guys driving around in an ice cream truck being properly 80s goofy, I would say. So, yeah, I think we can do better. Don't you? That's what I think. So, for right now, sadly, even though because I want to be able to grade the film. That's why I give unwatchable. I'm not being mean. I'm not being mean to Killer Clowns from Outer Space. But unfortunately, in the way in which AMC Plus/Shudder are presenting this film, I'm giving Killer Clowns from Outer Space the grade of unwatchable. It's not something I wanted to do, but for a streaming service that is comprised solely of horror films, and for it to be during this month seems kind of ridiculous for me to sidestep them as a streaming service and not at least talk about all of the possibilities that could be out there if this streaming service actually cared enough. So when I hear about how AMC Entertainment is struggling and AMC Networks is struggling and I don't shed a tear, because they obviously don't want me. So why would I want them? They're not making an effort to want me as a blind and visually impaired viewer, so why do I care about their continued existence? Because I don't. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And if you do get a chance to catch this ever with audio description, I have a feeling it's going to be a blast. Anyway, I do have a website, MacTheMovieGuy.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or Threads at MacTheMovieGuy. You can go to the Audio Description Project, which is that site I was talking about, where we list all the films and where we can find them, adp.acb.org. We'll let you know what has audio description and where you can watch it. It's sad this exists. I just want to point that out. Every time I say this website, it should not exist. There should just be audio description. If there was a website that told you which restaurants didn't give you food poisoning, we would find that troubling. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, which restaurants can I eat at? You know? Things like this should bother people. I don't know why they don't. I don't know why we just go, yeah, that seems like something we should have. A list of where we can find accessibility. Because we can't find it everywhere. So we have to make a list. Seems legit. And you can also go to the ADNA.org, that's the ADNA.org, and it'll let you know who's narrating your favorite films and television series. Anyway, thanks for checking this review. I'm sorry it's not more of a review of the film, but I can't really review the film because I'm blind and it doesn't have audio description, and that's not really fair to the film. So I have a feeling it's a blast, though. That's where I'm leaning. In my mind, considering I kind of somewhat enjoyed my experience even without the audio description because it was so weird, I have a feeling that I wouldn't give this movie an F. I just have a feeling it would be higher than Shark Side of the Moon, that's for sure. So anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the other side.